What's happening? I'm Paul Sharp, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about compassion fatigue and the first responder. Now, if you've been in the first responder world for any length of time, then you have probably attended a in-service where they talked about this. You might have got this lecture at the academy, whether it was fire or police, and you might even be experiencing it yourself right now or work with people who are. I guarantee that if you are not experiencing it, you are working with people who are, whether they are nurses, doctors, especially nurses and docs, fire, which would include firefighters and paramedics. A lot of places run double-breasted, right? And police, whether it's the sheriff, state police, whatever, any aspect of law enforcement. I remember, embarrassing, but I just want to be transparent with you guys. I remember responding to a call at a J.J. Pepper's, which is like a quickie mart. I remember responding to this call and getting there and seeing a frequent flyer. And you guys know what I'm talking about. If you're on the job, then there's these guys that just constantly, fire's responding to transport them to the ERs, dealing with them. We're the police side, we're dealing with them in some form or other. And this is when I realized I had hit the wall. And this person is banged up and just hurt in a bad way. And I'm standing there and I'm waiting for fire to get there. I've called that scene secure. The fight's gone. Whoever was fighting, everybody's gone. They ran away, left the victim on the ground. And I'm standing here with this guy and he's like, "Sharp, it hurts so bad." And I just remember looking down at him going, "I can imagine." And feeling nothing. Not feeling empathy, not feeling sympathy, feeling nothing. And fire getting there, the ambulance, and they show up and they're dealing with him, they're treating him. And a passerby, another frequent flyer, comes walking over. He's like, "Yo, Sharp, what's going on?" And I said, "Normal stuff, man. People being people." And just standing there and this person saying to me, "Man, you got no fucks left to give." And I looked at him and go, "I don't. I really don't." And they just kind of laughed and they walked off. But I remember it sticking with me. And here we are. I retired officially off of the job in 2020. And it still sticks with me, that conversation. That was probably 2013, 2012, somewhere in there. But it just sticks with me that I remember in that moment realizing that I just saw a human being treated terribly, in pain, needing help, and I felt nothing. I gave him help. I did my job, but I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel bad for them. I didn't feel any kind of like sympathy that this is their station in life. This is where they found themselves. This is somebody's kid. This is somebody's dad or brother. I felt nothing. I just was like, wow, I'm in trouble, man. And again, if you've been through in-service training, you probably had this training at the academy. Nothing I'm going to tell you is new. I just want to share with you what I did and the concentrated effort I put forth to find my humanity again, to find that part of me again. The first thing I did was I started reconnecting with why I did this job. And I know that sounds silly. And I know, again, in the academy, whether it's the fire, police, nurses, doctors, whatever, there was a certain point in time where you were asked by an instructor or someone to define why you want this job, why you want to move into this profession. And so for me, I started going back through my notes from the police academy when I was so excited and so fired up and just can't wait to get out there and make a difference. I'm going to be the one, and I'm going to be part of this fraternity, this great group of people, this long-standing profession. And I'm going to go out there and make a difference. And I started connecting to that. I started reading back through those notes. I started reading back through my personal mission statement that we had to write in the academy, which is, why do I want to do this job? What do I want to do with this job? And also kind of funny because at that point in time, you don't know anything about the job. You think you do. You think you know everything, but I knew nothing. And then you get on the job and holy cow, this is what's involved. But I went back and I went through those again, and what I did was I rewrote them. I rewrote that statement again, and it stayed pretty much the same. I had a better understanding now after being on the job for 10, 12 years, whatever. At that point, I had a better understanding of what was involved, but I went back and I reconnected with, I want to help people. I want to be a guardian. I want to be a protector. I want to be the line between the good and the bad, the good and the evil. I want to stand in the gap between where somebody can't defend themselves, they can't protect themselves, they have no advocate. I want to be that person that stands in that gap and fills that role for them. And so I started rewriting and revisiting those things. And I started to kind of wake up again inside. And it wasn't overnight. And by rewriting and then reading this every single day, multiple times a day, I hung it in my locker. So at the beginning of my shift and at the end of my shift, I would see this kind of personal mission statement just right there in front of me, staring me in the face. And I read it over and over again. And I reminded myself every single day, multiple times a day, why I got into this, why I went through all the trouble that we go through to get on the job, the testing, the background checks, the psychiatric examinations, the lie detector, just all of it, the physical, going to the academy and being treated like a boot for however many weeks you're in the academy, all of that stuff, I reminded myself why I went through that and why I keep showing up. And it's not just for the benefits or the pension or whatever, or that I've been doing this so long, now I'm locked in, I can't do anything else. I reminded myself why I wanted to do this and why this is the best job on the planet, and why people grow up playing cops and robbers or pretending to be firefighters or pretending to be a nurse or wearing the costumes on Halloween, little kids walking around dressed like SWAT cops or cops and firefighters and doctors and nurses. And remember those little dudes? Remember those people that want this job? Remember all the people that tested for this job, that have tested for years? I went to the police academy with people that had taken 30 or 40 tests to flown all over the country to try to get on the job. Remember those guys. Remember that and be thankful that you're here. That this could be somebody else. You might not have had the opportunity to do this job. Let's be grateful. Let's return to our original motivation, reconnect with that, maybe rewrite it a little bit, but let's get back on it. The next thing that I had to do was examine, what does my personal life look like? Am I spending all my time with just the guys I work with because I feel like nobody else gets me? What happened? What created that? What put that wall up between me and everyone else? How did I get to a point where I feel like nobody understands me? Nobody gets me. They don't see the stuff I see. They don't deal with the stuff I deal with. They have no idea what's involved with a domestic or with a fight call or the evil things that people do to their parents and to their children, to the elderly, to the young. People have no idea. And I can't relate to people who don't understand or who say things. People will say things that it's like nails on a chalkboard. They don't understand the system. They don't understand the dynamic of the criminal aspect of things. They don't understand the victim-offender dynamic and relationships. And I just, rather than try to deal with it, I just stayed away from them. I just gradually over time realized that I don't really hang out with anybody that's not on the job in some way or form. I had to correct that. So I had to figure out, how do I reconnect with the people who aren't on the job, who've been in my life for as long as I've had a life, and how do I reconnect with them? How do I get back to a place where I can spend time around regular folks, people who haven't seen the stuff we've seen. And that was a big step in the right direction to get me connected back to who I really was, to get rid of some of that fatigue, to peel away some of that compassion fatigue that had set in where I just couldn't feel anything. I was rapidly closing in on a world of us and them. And this got me out of that, because now I'm hanging out with friends that I haven't seen in a while. I'm hanging out with people who don't do the job, don't know anything about the job. They're curious, they love hearing stories, things like that. But we could also talk about the Bulls. We could talk about the Bears. We could talk about 100 other things that would take my mind away from the job and reconnect me to humanity. And so that's what I did. I put a lot of effort into making myself available to people that I had started to blow off and just ignore and not hang out with. So I started making myself available to those folks, getting myself back in those social circles, and reconnecting. The third thing was I never let myself go. I never was not physically fit. I always had to pass a physical for SWAT and that kind of stuff. There was always that physical piece that had to be in place. But I started putting myself in situations where I was around people. I started competing in strongman or powerlifting and becoming more involved in the jiu-jitsu world and MMA world, and putting myself out there and training and running endurance events and 5Ks, 10Ks, the sprints, the shorter races, but also the marathons and the ultra marathons, and doing that kind of stuff where, again, it puts me in a world where it's very different from my day-to-day job and my profession, but also it's feeding that side of me that is reconnecting to suffering and reconnecting to all of those things, just all the good stuff that comes with that. But also I started burning off that frustration. Instead of just lifting weights with guys I'm on the job with, or going for a run with guys I'm on the job with, I'm going for runs with like a running club. I joined a running club. No one else there was on the job. Nobody. It was a bunch of accountants and business owners and car sales guys. There was like 3 or 4 guys from a car sales conglomerate group, I guess you would call it. But there was like 10 of us, and we would meet a few times a week and go for a run and just decompress. Just drop in and decompress. I started doing that kind of stuff. Huge benefit. And now it wasn't that I'm doing fitness because of work. I guess that's the piece I never really put together. But I wasn't lifting weights and running and rolling to benefit my profession. I was lifting weights just for the fun of it and to compete in some powerlifting events and strongman events. I was running to compete in these races and go on these adventure runs and adventure races, and not even thinking about work. I was just totally just shut work off and thinking about, hey man, how do I run a 50K, which I think is like 33 miles or something? How do I run this? How do I run that and keep whatever pace it is? And how do I get around people who understand how to train for that and eat for that and recover for that and do what they're doing to be better at that, which obviously would have a carryover to the physical fitness tests and stuff, but it's not for the physical fitness tests. Now my workouts are for that. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys or not, but that really was an important piece for me, that it wasn't all about work. And then the final piece really was breathing, which seems simple, seems obvious. And I know in every training I've ever had for just about everything stress related in first responder world, they always talk about breathing and box breathing and this and that. But I really started to pay attention to the breathing techniques taught by guys like Brian McKenzie and Rob Wilson and those guys. And I really started to pay attention to breathing just to rejuvenate myself, to get in better touch with who I am, to all the things. It's hard to explain, but all the things that happen when you just sit still for 20 minutes and you breathe and you go through a series of exercises. It could be any number of things. There's so many good ways to practice breathing, to expand your breathing vocabulary, so to speak, that I'm not even going to get into all that. Unless you want me to get into all that, then I can. But it really it gave me that stillness. It gave me that still point. Just the mechanics of controlling the controllable. I can't control the uncontrollable. I can control my response to the uncontrollable things. But I can control my breathing. And the whole time, keeping your mind focused on what you're doing, not allowing yourself to drift and wander. And that would be my final thing that I would recommend, would be get into some sort of breathing practice. A couple things. It's going to help your sleep. It's going to help your stress management. It's going to help you on the job. There have been times on the job where I have, in the midst of everything just spinning out of control, I have reminded myself, control the controllables, control your response to the uncontrollable. Controlling the controllables starts with, how am I breathing right now? And get back into the here and now. And all those things together help me to start feeling again and help me to become a better dad, a better brother, son, co-worker. Everything benefited from reconnecting to my humanity and shaking off some of that compassion fatigue. If you can get rid of all of it, God bless you, man. I really hope you can. I pray that for you. I couldn't. I struggled. As my career went on, it got worse and it got harder. But I struggled. I fought it. I became conscious of it. And because I was conscious of it, I was able to fight it, at least push it back. And definitely in my personal life, fight it. That wanting to come home and just unplug, sit on the couch and just watch TV. I would not allow myself to watch TV. I would force myself to go wherever the kids were and just hang out. Go wherever my friends are, hang out. Spend time around people. Don't go into your cave and just shut the world off. That's not helping. I hope some of this stuff helps you guys, man. I really do.